All right, today we're going to talk about Earth's greatest sculptors. And no, I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about these massive, slow-moving artists that have literally carved the very ground we walk on. We're diving into the world of glaciers.
So let me ask you something to kind of set the stage here. What on earth can move a mountain? I'm not talking about some big explosive event. I mean something that can do it one single grain at a time. A force so slow and so powerful it takes thousands of years to do its work. Any ideas? Well, you guessed it. It's a river of ice. That's the answer. A glacier. This is that incredible force that's been shaping our world for eons, and believe it or not, it's still at it today. Okay, so what is a glacier, really? You can think of it like this. It's all about a constant battle between snowfall and snowmelt. In some places, it gets so cold that more snow piles up in the winter than can ever melt in the summer. Year after year, the snow just keeps stacking up. The weight gets so immense, it squeezes all the air out of the bottom layers, turning that fluffy snow into solid, dense ice. And then, once it gets to be, say, 30 to 50 meters thick, well, that's when gravity kicks in and the whole thing starts to move. And that movement, that slow, creeping flow, is what transforms it from just a big block of ice into one of nature's most incredible artists. You gotta remember, a glacier is never standing still. It's always moving, always working, always sculpting. And the canvas they work on? It's huge. I mean, get this. Right now, about 10% of all the land on Earth is covered by glaciers. To put that in perspective, that's an area about the size of South America. Yeah, most of it, of course, is in places like Antarctica and Greenland, but you'll find these icy artists busy at work in high mountains all over the planet. So how does one of these things even come to be? How is this artist born? Well, it's a pretty amazing story of transformation, and it all starts with something tiny, a single snowflake. Okay, so it happens in a few key steps. First, you just need tons of snow. More has to fall than melts year after year. That's step one. Then, step two, compaction. All the new snow on top puts a crazy amount of pressure on the old snow below, squeezing the air out. That leads to step three, where the snow turns into this dense, grainy stuff called firn. It's not quite snow, not quite ice. Then, with even more pressure, you get step four. That firn becomes solid glacial ice. And finally, the magic moment. Once it's about 50 meters thick, its own weight is just too much to resist and it starts to flow. And right there, our artist is born. All right, so every artist needs their tools, right? Well, a glacier's tools are, let's just say, brutally effective. It basically has two main ways it carves up the planet. On the one hand, you've got this thing called plucking. So imagine water from the glacier melts a bit, seeps into cracks in the rock below, and then refreezes. It's like super gluing the rock to the bottom of the ice. So when the glacier moves, it just rips or plucks these huge chunks of rock right out of the ground. Brutal. Then you've got abrasion. All those rocks that just got plucked, they get stuck in the bottom of the glacier. Now the glacier is basically like a giant piece of sandpaper with these giant rocks as the grit, and it just grinds and scrapes and polishes everything it moves over. So with its two tools, plucking and abrasion, this sculptor gets to work, and the results are just breathtaking. So let's go on a little gallery tour, shall we? Let's check out some of the glacier's greatest hits. Okay, first up, look at this. Before a glacier comes along, you've often got a valley carved by a river, right? It's usually narrow, kind of twisty, a classic V shape. But then a glacier comes plowing through that same valley. It's like a colossal bulldozer. It just straightens everything out, digs it deeper, makes it wider, and what you're left with is this massive, broad, U-shaped valley. The difference is just wow.
All right, next up in our gallery is a masterpiece called the Cirque. And this is a really special one because it's often the very place where a mountain glacier is born.
It's basically this huge bowl-shaped amphitheater carved right into the side of a mountain. And you can see how it was made. That super steep back wall, that's from plucking, just ripping the rock away. And the smooth, scooped-out floor, pure abrasion. And a cool little detail, when the glacier that made it melts away, these bowls often fill with water, and you get these gorgeous little mountain lakes called tarns.
Okay, that's what one glacier does. But what happens when you get two glaciers back to back, carving away at the same mountain from opposite sides? Well, you get our next piece of art, the Arête. It's this incredibly sharp, almost knife-edged ridge of rock. It's basically what's left over when two Cirques chew away at the land between them until there's almost nothing left.
So, two glaciers make a sharp ridge. Let's take it up a notch.
What if you have 3, or even more, all grinding away at the same mountain peak from all sides?
Well, that's when you get the most dramatic sculpture of them all, a horn. The glaciers carve away at the sides so much that all that's left is this steep, pointed, iconic peak. And if you're looking for the most famous one on the planet, look no further than the Matterhorn. So, we've seen what the glacier carves away. But the artist isn't just about destruction, it's also about creation. When the ice finally retreats, it leaves a whole lot of stuff behind, all the rock and dirt it was carrying, and that debris creates a totally new set of features on the landscape. We call these giant piles of glacial junk moraines, and they're like clues left behind. You've got lateral moraines, which are ridges of debris along the sides. When 2 glaciers flow together, you get a medial moraine right down the middle, like a stripe. And maybe the most important one is the terminal moraine. That's a big pile of stuff that marks the absolute furthest point that glacier ever reached. It's like a finish line. The glacier also leaves behind some really cool hills. There are 2 I want to show you. First, you have a drumlin. It's this smooth, kind of teardrop-shaped hill that was literally molded underneath the immense weight of the ice as it flowed over it. The shape tells you which way the ice was moving. Then you have something totally different, an esker. This is a long, snaking ridge. What's wild is that this was formed by a river that was flowing in a tunnel underneath the glacier. So one tells you about the flow on top, the other tells you about the plumbing underneath.
And then there's my personal favorite, one of the weirdest and coolest things a glacier leaves behind. The erratic. You'll just be walking in a field and see this gigantic boulder that makes no sense. It's a type of rock that's completely different from all the bedrock in the area. That's because the glacier picked it up, maybe hundreds of miles away, carried it all that distance, and then just dropped it. It's a total stranger in a strange land, a rock with an incredible travel story.
So you see, from carving these epic peaks to just dropping off these weird out-of-place boulders, the legacy of glaciers is, well, it's literally written all over the planet. Their ancient artwork is the landscape we live in.
I love this quote. It really just says it all. The idea that glaciers are architects and authors, it's perfect. The landscapes they leave behind aren't just pretty to look at, they're stories. And once you know the language, you can actually read that story. You can see the history of ice and time just by looking at the shape of a valley or wondering how that one giant rock got there.
So really, the world is just one giant art gallery, and the artist was a slow-moving river of ice. Which leaves me with a final thought for you. The next time you're out, wherever you are, and you see a really wide valley, or a super sharp ridge on a mountain, or just a weirdly large boulder sitting in a field, stop for a second and ask yourself, what story is the land around me trying to tell?